So a few months ago, I uploaded my Arcane video to my YouTube channel, of which I am quite proud of. Though I am a pretty critical and analytical person myself, so I thought I'd take some time to make this video to analyze some of the challenges that I went through and encountered during the creative process of this video. So the biggest challenge that occurred for me during this creative process, I lost the project file for the video that I was editing in the program called DaVinci Resolve. So I didn't know that you had to export your project file from the program and then take that file over if you're moving to a new PC. So I lost the arrangement of all the content that I was putting on the video timeline in the program, but I was luckily able to keep all of the content that I was using, which was on my hard drive, which I carried over to my new PC. But what was basically the case from that point was I was done with about 85 to 90% of the video editing, and I was almost ready to kind of finalize the product. So this did set me back quite a bit, which meant I had to now arrange the content and all the sound that I was using in the video in a way that I could not fully replicate how it originally was. But in saying that, I think it's fine the way that it turned out. I pretty much covered everything I wanted to, maybe just in different ways. Something I also experienced, which I do in other aspects of my life, is the fear of the unknown. So this being my first video review I'm doing and also editing in the software I haven't used before, I was learning a bit of the basics of just how to edit the video in DaVinci Resolve, and I was seeing how capable this software was. It's actually quite amazing that it's being given to us for free. I feel like when I'm using something so complex and so vast in its capability that I'm not doing as well as I could be on something. And knowing that sitting in my mind that I don't actually know everything, that I'm not as knowledgeable as I technically could be. And usually when this ends up happening, I end up building it up in my mind as some kind of beast as I neglect it, because every time I turn away from it and decide not to engage in it again because of all the unknowns that I haven't yet covered, it makes it seem like a much bigger problem than it actually is. So I think the way that I got through this was to just cover what I needed to cover for editing a video the way I wanted to, like only learning the skills that I needed to apply to it. But also as part of a mindset thing, it's that you don't need to know everything, and especially if you haven't used something before or you haven't made something before. Not everyone's a very quick learner. You have to start somewhere, and something I tend to do is, given I might start something and be in the early stages, I find myself comparing myself to others who are more advanced and are covering more advanced things and thinking to myself, oh, I can get to that ideal state, right? I can also do that too. Yes, I can, but it's also considering that other people have had more time with the thing than me. They've had more time to learn and gather knowledge and experience and just analyzing and demonstrating how capable something is. I think I also felt a similar thing in a way to branching out and covering absolutely everything that I saw in Arcane, just for the sake of pointing it out and saying that I saw it. But I had to realize for myself that I couldn't cover absolutely everything that I saw in Arcane, and the video would be too long, much longer than I would have wanted it to be. So narrowing down the scope of that and focusing in on what I wanted to cover and putting them into some kind of structure helped me to actually formulate a better, more calculated approach that wasn't so overwhelming. I found that as I did that, all the other parts that were maybe just random Easter eggs or bits were not fitting into how I wanted to shape the video. A related part to this was I have a strong sense of striving for originality. So I was also watching other people who had done video reviews and done reviews for Arcane as well. The main reason I watched other people's reviews was to get an idea on how people structured reviews when they were talking about TV shows. But I ended up comparing my content that I was going to cover to the content that they were covering, and I felt like I needed to be doing more because they were also covering things that maybe I wanted to talk about. It made me feel inferior in a sense, and also a feeling that I shouldn't be talking about what someone's already said. So I decided to stop watching Arcane specific review videos and maybe go to watch a different movie or TV show review by someone just to pick up on how they executed it. And for my review, I referred more to the notes that I took down when I was watching the series for the second time and what I observed, and just pick the parts that could fit within the narrative that I was trying to tell with my video. It felt better to just sit with my own thoughts and my perspectives on a scene that I watched, for instance. It felt like I was able to get more of that originality because people can perceive things differently than other people and come to different conclusions and have different thoughts about things. An extremely common challenge that I experienced was sometimes I just didn't feel like editing a video after a day at work. Sometimes if I didn't feel like engaging in that creative process, the perception of sitting down to work on the video after I've finished work also felt like work for this video creation process. So I would often just play video games instead because that felt like more of a leisurely activity. But the times when I would actually want to sit down and work on the video were times when I may have been inspired throughout the day by an idea, and I would just write it down on my phone and think about how I could portray that in the video. So I think that was quite good actually to make me want to come and sit down and further the creative process and progress with that. And that is to hold on to the ideas that surface in my mind throughout the day and not just forget about them. Because I would usually try to keep my mind focused on work the whole time. But in this instance, if I take down the idea and note it down for later, I can then look forward to putting that together in the video editing process and portraying that in a way which fits the story that I want to tell. And that was actually something that excited me when I was actually sitting down and I found I couldn't really force myself to stop. And that was something I found helped me with pushing forward and progressing the video. Once I was able to use that creative desire from my ideas, I was able to get into the zone of editing more often, and I found that if I wanted to stop, I kind of had to force myself to stop. It's definitely a good feeling though when you have the idea and you're able to put it down and see it come to life. I think that was a very rewarding part of this process. There's also another angle that would occur sometimes that would cause me to want to come and sit down and do some video editing. Sometimes if I have a day that's just not so productive or I feel quite groggy because maybe I procrastinated on something during the day, when I would think about editing the video in these instances, I would find more of a drive for the creativity here because I feel like I wasn't able to do good work during the day. So at the end of the day, I would find I'm more drawn to video editing from that cause. And a pretty general issue I think most people struggle with is just perfectionism. And even editing this video, I do multiple takes and I try to find a really good take or the best take. The same thing was happening with video editing where I would think, oh, there's probably a better clip that I can find and scroll through to fit what I'm saying here. Also issues that I pick up in audio where it's like, oh, that sounds a bit muddy or that's cutting off a bit too early. So I think this actually improved quite a bit when I had to do the second take of editing the video after I lost the progress on the project from migrating PCs. I was able to remember most bits of how I structured the video originally, and I felt a need to streamline it a bit more because I'd already gone through most of this process the first time. In saying all this though, I'm still quite happy with how the video turned out, and as my first review video as well. And shortly after I released the Arcane review video to YouTube, it was then announced that Arcane Season 2 was coming out in November, and as of recording this video now, I'm recording it in October, so it's gonna happen very soon. I am a bit bummed to hear that Arcane is ending on the second season that's coming out in November, but in saying that, I just look forward to appreciating the work that they've put into this series and closing it out. It truly feels like a series where I just feel so immersed in the world and the characters and the experience that we have while watching it from people's perspectives. Overall, for my first video, I think it was a good learning experience, if anything. If I had to change anything for the future videos I do, I'd say first off that big issue that I ran into, the setback, I'd just check that I export the project file first. Overall, I do feel some regret in how long it took for me to release the video, because it's effectively almost 3 years since Arcane Season 1 came out, and I released my video a few months ago. It definitely didn't feel like such a habit for me because sometimes I just wouldn't feel like doing it, and like I said, I just turn to things that are easy and satisfying with leisure, like playing video games. So I think what I mentioned before and taking notes when I have these creative ideas to get it down and get my mind thinking about how I can arrange it, I think that will help me to actually want to sit down and do this video editing to shape the kind of story that I want to tell.